Disturbing death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose body was found in the trunk of a Tesla belonging to singer David, is now being described as a murder investigation, according to the Los Angeles Times.
A tow yard worker in Hollywood, California, made a phone call in early September 2025 that would set off one of the most disturbing missing persons investigations this country has seen in years. An abandoned vehicle had been sitting in their lot, a black Tesla Model X. Nobody had come to claim it. Nobody had come looking for it. And nobody at that point had any idea what was inside. When authorities arrived and opened the front trunk of that Tesla on September 8, 2025, what they found was beyond anything they could have prepared for. The remains of a human being severely decomposed and dismembered. A cadaver bag containing a head and torso. A second cadaver bag containing severed arms and legs. The condition of the body was so advanced in decay that flies had already gathered. The victim was later identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was 14 years old. 14, a child, a daughter, gone and found in the most horrific of circumstances, inside a luxury electric vehicle that had been quietly sitting in a Hollywood tow yard, reported as abandoned near 1405 Bluebird Street, where it had been since late August 2025. That means for days, possibly weeks, Celeste's remains were there, and no one knew. Now here is where this case takes a turn that has gripped the true crime community and made national headlines. That Tesla, the one where Celeste was found, was registered to a rising music star, a name you may already know, D4VD, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke, a 20-year-old singer from Hempstead, Texas, who at the time Celeste's body was discovered, was on tour. D4VD is not some underground act. He has millions of streams, a real following, a real career, and now, according to court filings confirmed as recently as February 2026, he is the named target of a Los Angeles County grand jury investigation, one count of murder.
Now at 1:30, breaking news. Newly unsealed court records in connection to the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez reveal that singer David is now being investigated for her murder. Those documents also provide horrifying new details in this case.
KTLA's Aaron Myers live in our newsroom with more on this breaking story. Aaron.
Court documents made public in the alleged homicide of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez reveal gruesome new details about the death of the teenager, identifying the singer David as the investigation's central target. The documents were made public through Texas appellate proceedings and are tied to the Los Angeles County grand jury murder investigation targeting singer David Burke. Private investigator Steve Fisher posted the documents on his X account. The documents were filed under seal but were made public after the singer's family challenged subpoenas compelling them to testify before a California grand jury. Los Angeles Magazine says the proceedings in Texas weren't sealed, so portions of the California filings were available in the Texas appellate docket. Hernandez's remains were found in September of last year inside the front trunk of a Tesla registered to the singer David at a tow yard in Hollywood. Employees contacted police after noticing a strong odor coming from the car. The filings show detectives found a cadaver bag containing human remains along with other body parts in a second bag. The documents also identify Burke as the target of the grand jury investigation, saying he may be involved in one count of murder. The singer's father, mother, and brother, who live in Texas, were summoned to testify in Los Angeles on February 11th. But David's father filed a petition for writ of habeas corpus, saying the subpoena violated his constitutional due process rights. His lawyers claim he was denied due process because he did not get full, unredacted copies of California certification documents, and that portions establishing why his testimony was material and necessary were withheld, according to the Los Angeles Magazine. In the documents, detectives say David and his father have a close relationship. The Texas First Court of Appeals rejected the petition, according to Los Angeles Magazine, telling the family they had until yesterday to file additional appeals.
The Court of Appeal in Texas was very clear in telling David's mother, his father, and his brother that they must appear in front of the grand jury in California. They found that their information would be both material and necessary in terms of this investigation.
As of now, it does not look like anything new was filed in court before the deadline, so David's family may have already testified, according to our legal expert, Allison Treasel. In the newsroom, I'm Aaron Myers. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
With malice aforethought under California law, no arrest has been made, no charges have been formally filed, and it has been nearly 6 months since Celeste's body was found. 6 months. A grand jury is active. A private investigator has released over 150 pages of documents questioning the pace of this investigation and pointing to the possibility of additional people involved. And D4VD's own family, his mother, his father, and his brother have been compelled by Texas courts to travel to Los Angeles and testify before that grand jury. This is the case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. And today, we are breaking down everything that has come out in the most recent court filings. Before we get into the investigation, if you are watching this and you care about justice for Celeste, hit that like button right now and make sure you are subscribed. This case is still developing, and every update will come straight to this channel. Drop a comment and tell us what state or country you're watching from. Let us know you are here.
Disturbing death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose body was found in the trunk of a Tesla belonging to singer David, is now being described as a murder investigation, according to the Los Angeles Times. The LAPD obtained a court order blocking the release of the medical examiner's records in the case, records that could determine her cause of death.
In those documents, the Times reports that a detective characterizes the probe as an investigation into murder for the first time. Sandra Mitchell live in Hollywood with more on the bombshell development. Sandy.
Micah and Cher, all along, the LAPD has said they would not classify this as a homicide, at least until they had the results of the coroner's report. Well, it now appears that they do know the cause of death. They're keeping it a secret, and for the first time are referring to this as an investigation into murder. Tonight, as the LAPD zeroes in on possible suspects in the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, investigators have obtained a court order to keep the autopsy report in the case secret.
Which tells me that the findings are there. They know the report is complete.
Former LAPD detective Moses Castillo tells KTLA that still means the cause of death could be determined or undetermined.
The reason why they don't want to release that piece of information is because then it tells the suspect or suspects involved what's out there, and they definitely don't want them to know what's out there.
11 weeks after the teen was found dead in the trunk of a Tesla owned by singer David, LAPD is withholding information. They have not made any arrest or commented publicly on the case, and now they are concealing the possible cause of death, a move criticized by the LA County Chief Medical Examiner. In a statement, he said, "The practice of security holds is virtually unheard of in other counties. We are dedicated to serving our community with full transparency. However, the law precludes us from doing so while the court order remains in this case." There have been some wild media reports about the case, including that the victim's body was partially frozen when she was found, something Castillo says the commanding officer for the LAPD Robbery Homicide Division has denied.
He's quoted as saying, "It's in the summer." I mean, she's been out there for weeks. It's to think it was frozen doesn't even make sense.
The girl's body was found in September and the Tesla impounded at a Hollywood tow yard. Defense attorney Mark Garagos, who is not connected to the case, says police now are investigating a trip that David took to a remote area of Santa Barbara County around the same time they believe Rivas Hernandez died.
They believe that they have triangulated locations which are very interesting to their investigation, which has allowed them to at least try to put a circle around the various people who may or may not have more information.
So again, the big development in this case tonight, for the first time, LAPD apparently referring to this as a murder. We're live tonight in Hollywood. I'm Sandra Mitchell, KTLA 5 News. Sharon, Micah, back to you.
We start with new developments in the case of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose body was found in the front trunk of singer David's impounded Tesla in September.
David was officially identified as a suspect in the teen's death this week. And now a source that's close to the case says detectives have identified a second suspect. Lindsay Pena, live in our news center with the latest on that. Lindsay?
Rick and Karine, this is the second major development in this case this week. Back on Tuesday, a source was able to confirm to KTLA that singer David is being named as a suspect, as you mentioned. The body of the Lake Elsinore teen was found September 8th in the front trunk of David's Tesla, impounded at a Hollywood tow yard. David was on tour at the time, but police now believe Hernandez was killed last spring. The medical examiner reported she had been dead for an extended period of time. Just yesterday, the case was updated in the medical examiner's website. The cause of death had been listed as deferred for weeks, but now there is no information listed, which means there could be a security hold on the case. Late today, TMZ reporting that Rivas's body may have been frozen, and that could make it difficult or nearly impossible to determine the cause of death. Our request to the medical examiner's office for more information hasn't been answered yet. Now there are reports of a second suspect being named. That information coming from attorney Mark Garagos, who is not connected to the case but says he's talked to people close to the investigation and they've told him this person could be involved before, during, and after her death.
I think what law enforcement is focusing on right now is they're trying to determine locations, and they have reverse engineered. They obviously know when they found the car. They obviously know when they discovered the remains. They now are reverse engineering the movements of all those who were involved, and they've done it in a very sophisticated way.
Garagos and Harvey Levin of TMZ both confirming independently that investigators are looking closely at a trip that David took to a remote area of Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night last spring. At this point, one former LAPD detective we've spoken with says David is likely under surveillance, and all of these developments could mean an arrest is coming soon. Attorney Allison Treasel saying investigators are likely taking their time and being extra careful since this case is so high profile.
This is a high-profile case with a lot of eyes on the LAPD, and they don't want to get it wrong. They should not have to be in any type of a rush because there's no statute of limitations on a murder case, if this is in fact a murder, and the coroner has yet to release the manner of death or the toxicology reports.
As of now, there have still been no charges and no arrests in this case. In the News Center, Lindsay Pena, KTLA 5 News. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Lindsay, thank you.
This weekend, there was bombshell reporting that Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body had likely been frozen. She's the young runaway whose boyfriend, singer David, is much older, and in whose Tesla trunk her remains were discovered. Sources told several outlets that Celeste had been decapitated and that her limbs had been removed from her torso, cut into pieces, and then apparently stored in a freezer. But tonight, the captain of the Robbery Homicide Division of the LAPD is telling People magazine those reports aren't true. Captain Scott Williams tells People that Celeste was not frozen and that, quote, Celeste was not decapitated. The whole frozen thing doesn't even make sense. Her body was in the car for weeks, he said. And he added, even if she had been frozen solid when she was put in the car, which there is no evidence to suggest she was, 5 or more weeks in the trunk of a car in sweltering heat in the middle of summer would not have resulted in a partially frozen body being discovered on September the 8th, end quote. Tonight, the LA Medical Examiner's Office, the people who did the autopsy on Celeste, say that they're officially being barred by court order from saying anything about her death. And it was the LAPD that asked the court to do that. And if you find that outrageous, as I do, the ME is not thrilled about it either. The LAPD requested what's called a security hold, and a judge okayed it. But the ME says a security hold is virtually unheard of in other counties, and counter to the mission of what it says is full transparency at the ME's office. So what don't the police want us to know? All I can tell you is that the gag order coincides with the explosive reporting about the whole frozen stuff. Last week, we told you that David is now officially considered a suspect. TMZ reporting that the police have their eyes, though, on a second suspect as well, who may have, quote, been involved before, during, and after Celeste's death, end quote. The outlet says police are focusing on a quick trip in the middle of the night to a remote location in Santa Barbara County that was done back in spring. TMZ says police are focusing on that location as possibly being where Celeste was killed. Remember, Celeste was discovered September 8th, and only then because of a terrible smell coming from the trunk of that Tesla parked just around the block. from David's mansion. Joining me now is Michelle Dupree, a retired forensic pathologist, former medical examiner, and friend of the show. Dr. Dupree, thanks for being on. I had so many questions when I heard this report. First and foremost, you're not going to get partially frozen body parts at the ME's office if there was a stench coming from the trunk. That would have been a long thawed, long decomposing body. But I do want to ask you if there might be some partial truth to this, that possibly those body parts had been frozen long ago and then had decomposed in the back of the trunk. If that part might be true, what does that do to a medical examiner trying to determine what happened with this body that they've received? What was the cause of death? Would freezing do something to that body?
Absolutely, freezing would. And it is possible that the body was frozen, and then, of course, after 5 weeks would not be frozen when found. But freezing actually damages the cells. It also actually speeds up decomposition once it starts to thaw. Anything that is blunt trauma, a gunshot wound, sharp force injuries, something like that, that would still be available. We would still see that at the autopsy. But anything that might be subtle, such as strangulation or something of that nature, would be much, much more difficult if the body had been frozen. And again, of course, once it's so badly decomposed.
I've got 5 seconds left. We had so much breaking news off the top of this program. I just have to ask you how unusual this is that the LAPD asked a court to block the medical examiner from releasing any details.
It's very unusual. Transparency is part of it, but it is not unheard of. If they really think it's going to affect the investigation, then it's warranted.
Dr. Dupree, I'll have to have you back on when I've got more minutes for us because I have so many questions for you. Thank you for this tonight.
After everything I've just seen in those interviews and filings, let's talk about where this case actually stands. D4VD has been named as the target of a Los Angeles County grand jury. That is not a rumor. That is confirmed in official court filings reviewed on Law and Crime Network Sidebar, hosted by Jesse Weber, in an episode that aired on February 26, 2026. 1 count of murder, malice aforethought. Those are the words in the filing. And yet no arrest, no charges formally filed. 5 months and counting since a 14-year-old girl's dismembered body was found in the front trunk of a Tesla registered to this man. Now, a private investigator named Steve Pfizer has entered the picture in a significant way. He has released over 150 pages of documents, posted publicly on his social media, that are deeply critical of how this investigation has been handled. He is not just questioning the pace. He is suggesting that there may be additional people involved, specifically naming Neo Christopher Langston as a potential accomplice. Then there is the family angle. D4VD's mother, Colleen Burke, who also manages his music career, his father, Drew Burke, and his brother Caleb were all called to testify before the LA County grand jury in February 2026. Texas courts had to legally compel them through Waller County hearings. Their lawyers fought back, filing writs of habeas corpus, challenging the subpoenas on due process grounds and citing redacted affidavits they claimed did not give enough information to comply. The courts denied those challenges. They ruled the family's testimony was material to the case in part because of how closely tied they are to D4VD, both personally and professionally. LAPD detectives escorted them. What did they say once they got there? Did they invoke the Fifth Amendment? That is still unclear. The grand jury proceedings are sealed. Right here, pause for a second. What do you think is actually happening with this investigation? Do you think an arrest is coming soon? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time we are covering every new development in this case as it happens. Here is what we know about Celeste. She was 14 years old. Her remains were found on September 8, 2025. The Tesla that held her body had been sitting near 1405 Bluebird Street since at least late August. That means a timeline of when she was placed in that vehicle and what happened in the days or weeks before she was found is something investigators have been working to establish through a sealed autopsy and sealed investigative findings. This case is not cold. The grand jury is active. Court filings are being made. Family members are being compelled to testify. That is all movement. But for the family of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, for anyone watching this who was a child, a younger sibling, a niece or nephew 6 months without an arrest, without formal charges, without a public accounting of what happened to this girl, is a long time.